One of the humbling privileges of serving as a pastor is that people allow me to walk with them through moments most will never see. I get invited into hospitals, rooms with families as they're waiting for difficult news. I sit with people who have lost someone they love. And I walk with people through grief and illness, broken relationships, and seasons when life feels overwhelming. And over the years, I've noticed something, that when people tell the story of what helped them survive those moments, they almost never refer to a program. They almost always instead talk about a person. The friend that showed up or the church member that just sat with them. The person who refused to let them walk through this difficult season alone. Again and again, what people remember are these acts of love. Not abstract love, not theoretical love, but love that showed up, love that stayed, love that reminded them they weren't alone. And that raises a question for me. Why is it that some moments of love seem to change everything? What is it about compassion that can transform a person's life? Because if our mission statement is true, that God's love changes the world, how does that actually happen? How does God's love actually change the world? And I think it's an important question for us to ask as we look around the world and we see some things we probably would want to change. This world is incredibly divisive. We see a lot of loneliness. The U.S. Surgeon General actually has declared loneliness as a full-blown public health epidemic. We see anxiety. And sometimes we see these things in the headlines. Sometimes we see them in the person sitting across from us at the dinner table. And sometimes we see it in the mirror. And sometimes the needs of the world can feel overwhelming, almost numbing. Because what difference can one person truly make? When most of us are just trying to get through the week, we have our own stuff to deal with. We're trying to keep up at work, we're trying to take care of our families and all the responsibilities around us. So when we hear a statement like God's love changes the world, it sounds wonderful. But sometimes we wonder how. How does that happen? It's one of the reasons I'm excited about the next few weeks as we're going to look at our mission statement. This is something that we invested a lot of time in over the last year, and we approved it last fall, and most of you have probably already forgotten it by now. No shame. I sometimes mix it up as well. Because I know mission statements aren't the most enjoyable thing to talk about in the world, because most organizations have one. Almost every church has one. And the problem isn't that we have mission statements, it's that we just tend to forget them by Tuesday. But at their best, a mission statement is simply an attempt to answer a very important question. Who is God calling us to be? And so we spend a lot of time asking you and having you wrestle with where you feel God is calling us to be. And we took your opinions, we took your feedback, and we took a lot of time and prayer and discernment to come up with this mission statement. And we're going to all say it together because you remember it, correct? We believe God's love changes the world. We belong in community together, and we're becoming Christ's love in action for all. 3 people said it. Thank you. Awesome. We are crushing it. Even more reason, though, over the next 3 weeks to look at this, to spend time in it. And it's not because I want you to memorize it, though I think that's important. But even more important is I want you to live it. These aren't just words on a paper. This is our call to action. This is how we feel God is not only calling us to be as a church, but how God is calling us to live in the world. These 3 phrases, we believe God's love changes the world, we belong in community together, and we are becoming Christ's love in action for all. Which brings us back to today's gospel. Matthew tells this story of Jesus who's traveling across villages and towns, and he's teaching, and he's preaching, and he's healing. And then something happens before he does any of it. It says, when Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion for them because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. Notice the sequence. He saw, then he felt, then he acted. We almost always want to reverse that order. We want to act before we learn to feel. We want to send before we've learned to see. We want programs to fix things before we actually have compassion. But Jesus begins with seeing. And the word Matthew uses for compassion is one of the strongest in the Greek language. It refers to this gut level, visceral response to suffering. It's the kind of compassion that physically moves you, the kind that refuses to stay detached. Meaning that Jesus doesn't observe the suffering of these towns from the distance. He doesn't walk by and say, oh, they must be suffering. Jesus enters into these places. He sees the hurt, he sees the harm, and is so moved internally that he can't resist but enter into these communities. And then he gathers these 12 ordinary people and sends them to do the same. And he doesn't choose these 12 because they have it all figured out or that they're especially qualified. He could have found way more qualified people. But it's because these 12 have encountered the compassion of Christ, and it changes how you see the world. And we see it all throughout the Gospels. The blind receive their sight, the sick are healed, the outcast are welcomed, the sinners are forgiven, the forgotten are remembered. Because each and every time they encountered the love of God. That's why our mission statement starts where it does. It starts with, we believe God's love changes the world. But notice what it doesn't say. It doesn't say our programs change the world. It doesn't say our opinions change the world, as strong as we may believe they are true. It doesn't say our buildings change the world. It doesn't even say we change the world. But it does say God's love changes the world. That's where everything begins. Because God's love changes people, it restores, it heals, it gives hope. And it answers the question we've been asking. That God's love changes the world not through power or force, not through people having all the right answers or opinions. God's love changes the world because God refuses to remain distant from people who are hurting. So I want to leave you with a question. Jesus enters the town, and the first thing he does is he sees these people. So I wonder, who are you failing to see? And I get we are busy and we are distracted and we are carrying the weight of our own burdens. But that still leaves the question, who in your life right now is carrying something nobody else can see? Who feels forgotten? Because Jesus teaches us this morning, compassion begins with seeing. That before Jesus changes anyone's circumstances, he notices them. And perhaps that's the invitation for us this week, to slow down long enough and to see. To slow down long enough to pay attention, to ask a second question, to say in that uncomfortable conversation for just a little while longer. And to notice the person standing right in front of you. Because the people around us are rarely interruptions. They are so often the mission. And when I look at this church, I see people who already know that and live it. In the meals that are delivered, the food that is stuffed and delivered every Monday at Bread for All. The prayers that are offered, the phone calls that are made, the quiet acts of love that may never make a report or receive recognition. That is what our mission statement looks like in real life. It's not an argument or a bumper sticker. It's just someone who stops, someone who sees, and someone who is moved by what makes God's heart move. God's love is already changing the world. The question is whether we'll have the eyes to see it and the courage to join in, one person at a time. Amen.